So is it just me, or does it seem like people are ready to show the establishment that they can't get away with what they thought they could get away with? Is it just me, or does it seem like in this coming election, people like Democrats, progressives, liberals, whatever, are ready to show for posterity, to set a precedent that you just can't fuck with us like that. We don't fuck around like that, or whatever I'm trying to say with the word fuck. Um, I'm really hopeful, and I know that I'm over here in Europe, and I have been since Trump started his campaign. I guess mostly a coincidence, but I do think it factored in that once he was elected, I didn't go back like I was supposed to. Anyway, um, I think we have a really, really cool opportunity. I can't speak to past elections and candidates, but we've got a pretty dramatic opportunity here where the um, greater of the two evils is just totally, 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 totally unacceptable. And the lesser of the two evils is just totally unacceptable. I think that, it could be even worse. It could be even worse. But this is not bad. 'Cause I remember people talking about a lesser of two evils with Gore and Bush, or with Kerry and Bush. Nah, bruh. This is good. This is a great opportunity, and let's not wait until it's to somethings that are just really, 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 really terrible. Let's not wait for them to teach the government and the political system a lesson, and to teach future candidates a lesson. So I'm really hoping that take a step back. I know you're in the country, maybe if you're in the U.S. right now, but take a step back in time. Take a step back from the timeline and go, shit, if Biden gets elected, we've only reinforced their belief that as long as they're a part of the Democratic Party, as long as they've got the word Democrat tied to their name, then they'll get our votes, you know? And what's great is like Biden and the whole campaign can really get away. The whole regime, what am I trying to say? So it's an E, no A. What am I trying to say? The whole administration. I think there was another word I was looking for, but anyway, the whole administration. Um, all they have to do is just make Trump look really bad, and honestly, Trump does not make himself look that bad. Sure, if somebody looks bad to you because they mispronounce things every once in a while, okay, but that's you who's an idiot. Um, Trump is not good. But it's crazy how lazy the efforts to paint him as not good are. Also, just because we're all stupid, and so we go, "Oh, he's orange. Yeah, that should be a talking point." Anyway, um, but yeah, it's just not. We're just not setting ourselves up for something that our kids are going to appreciate. Basically, as long as either the other candidate is bad or is at least made to look bad within a particular bubble, then that bubble will vote for their representative, their supposed representative, even if he's not representative. So I'm hoping you guys take advantage. I'm hoping some of you have the courage to vote Trump. Or if you're on the right and you don't like Trump and you think Biden is worse, I don't know that you're faced with the exact same problem that we have, but anyway, the point is, and also actually, no lesson would be taught really if everyone on the right just voted for the left, left voted for the right, and then someone won with half the votes. Here's what I recommend: right, do exactly what you're doing, vote for whoever you want to. Left, abstain, so they see that in the numbers. In fact, abstinence is better than voting for Trump, because then they'll say, whoa, Trump won by a landslide. Either way, he'll win by a landslide in percentage if we do a good job. But hopefully it'll also be the lowest voter turnout, of the century or of the past 2 centuries or something, when you control for the population. The game I have that the taxonomy people, it's called argumentum, the art of never being wrong. And I don't think it's possible to avoid cognitive errors. I think it's only possible to avoid doubling down on them, and it's possible to catch them. But I don't think that you can catch them if you don't make them. You can't, like, catch it about to happen. You can maybe catch it before you say it out loud, but it still has to happen and be noticed. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad news. And look, y'all are making more mistakes than you even realize, so don't trip. It's not like you guys on a daily basis are making no mistakes. No, we're constantly making mistakes, and a lot of association mistakes. 2 things are associated, and then that suffices for that association is going to, in the mind, justify some other claim about the relationship, because the brain's simple. So it's these 2 things associated, and it's happy to go, all right, that causes that, or that causes that, for instance. Oh, so then what you have to do is go, hey, I just made a causal affirmation. Wait a minute. I don't really have any mechanisms for cause, actually. The brain didn't evolve mechanisms for cause. So I definitely noticed a correlation. Now we need to investigate, focus our attention. What is that correlation? Yeah. I know it sounds like it looks like causation, but what is it actually? Okay, so one thing happened before the other. Okay. Yeah. No, I get why everybody's ready to say causation. And then what do the scientists say about the relationship? Okay. And I mean, I think that's true. I don't know that we have causal interpreters. Why would we need them? If you have a correlation interpreter and a time interpreter and a physical interaction interpreter, that's enough to basically have a causal interpreter, but not actually. So, okay, so that happened when that happened. That happened before that happened? Right before? That happened right before, and then had a visual effect on that thing before that thing did its thing? Cause. Yeah, what else does it mean to be like, it's causal? You need time, you need an initial association, and then on top of that, a close time relationship and a close distance relationship. And then if a cause and an effect, or we don't, a potential cause and a potential effect, they're 2 events that are already associated. On top of that, indeed, we can confirm that the potential cause happened just before the potential effect. And indeed, the potential cause had some physical relationship to the potential effect. Boxes are checked, bro. And so then, I bet we don't even have. It's like how we don't have a sense of wet. So instead, it's about texture and temperature, relative texture and temperature. We don't have causal. What do you think about that? Another piece of the reason illusion in the Warsaw myth is that we are based in reason, so we have naive realism in the censor myth, which are the erroneous sort of assumptions that we seem to have that we see reality as it is. And sort of the flip side of that, sort of, but not about perception, but about production, is that which we do came from reason. And one way in which that very frequently manifests is people saying, I wouldn't do that because that's not reasonable. I wouldn't have done that because that's not reasonable. So here's an example. So there's a card game I play on my phone often called Belote. So I was just playing that. And in the first 2 tricks of the round, we had fucked them up. They were no longer going to make their contract. We had already gotten enough points to mess them up. And so after that point, I just started playing random cards. Not random cards. I started playing my best cards when they weren't going to do their job. Just sort of as like a playful, I don't even need these anymore. So I'm throwing all my heavy cards, throwing them away. Don't need them. We've already fucked you up. And then I was thinking, well, I guess that could be dangerous to be, because often when I'm playing Belote, I'm not paying a lot of attention. I'm relying on my system 1 its. My instincts regarding the game. Quick glance at my cards. I'm keeping track of, the trump cards played, but beyond that, not paying a whole lot of attention. And I've played enough to have a good enough instincts. I don't know. I mean, my percentage is like 55%. Win percentage, maybe 53 actually. So, but it's above 50. And but I was thinking, the more that if I start making a habit out of, and sometimes in some hands, throwing away my big cards, then my whole habit of, not throwing away big cards, which is an important habit to winning, that starts to get sort of reduced, and I start habiting the other habit. And so I imagined saying to myself or to someone, hey, you gotta be careful, or not even be careful, that's a bad idea, because you're practicing bad habits. You're habiting bad habits. And I imagine that the person that I'm giving this advice to not do this, some other me, I imagine that person saying, bro, I'm not going to do that when I haven't already won the trick. That wouldn't make any sense. This is only what I do when I've already won the trick. I would never do that, never throw away a high card while I'm still, I'm still trying to or not the trick, the hand. And that's the point, that, yeah, you could, yeah. But you're not based in reason. What is reasonable is not an indicator of what we would do, and what is unreasonable is not an indicator of what we would never do. That's not how the brain works. And when you have critical recognition, you see that the Warsaw illusions are illusions. And so specifically, you see that the reason illusion is an illusion. And that has, I think, 2 implications. One that I talk about often. Wait a minute. Or is it 3? No, the naive realism, is that a thing with reason? Interpretation, processing? No. All right, well, let's say these 2 things. One is that the source of your behavior is not reason, and the probability of your behavior should not be assessed based on how reasonable that behavior would be. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is that maybe these are the same thing. I mean, maybe this is just 2 sides of the same point. But the other thing is that when you have a belief that it is not based on reason, and also don't expect people to fucking reason, we have to figure out what tools are already in here and how to use those. You can't just be like, yo, stop being unreasonable, reason. And you realize that there's no point in saying that. So there's something about the shortcuts of the heuristics and the way they were slapped that's producing an unreasonable outcome. So we just have to figure out what in the map it needs to be adjusted. what do we need to remind the system of or whatever in order to slap it the right way to get the what would better imitate reason. All right. So anyway, obviously it's still a work in progress. Everything is. I'm on the ferry. We can stop saying that there's no evidence against God. Sometimes I still hear that. I hear it often. And I think it's like a great thing to say as an atheist. And to show that we're not claiming to like have indisputable evidence against God. And it also helps us bring the focus to the question isn't about whether or not there's proof against God. The question is whether there is evidence for God. And so that's great. That's great. You know, and for most of our history, I mean, it was kind of impossible to have evidence against God. And in some ways, we still don't have evidence against God, but we have evidence against the idea of God. So suppose that you're, and it's not the problem of evil, which I think is fucking stupid, because simple response that any person can give an atheist who starts talking about the problem of evil, yo, we don't understand morality. Quite literally, yes, maybe that baby being blown up and going to heaven is, maybe that baby blowing up and going to heaven is, good. Yeah. You're supposed to have faith that it's an all-knowing, loving God. So obviously, you know something either about morality or about the results of this explosion and the baby blowing up that you don't know. So, no. So that's problem of evil is stupid. Sometimes religious people, their evidence would be, look around you, bro. Not just look around you, nature. That's stupid, but billions of people believe in this. It must be on to something. Like, what are the chances that there are people over there, and people over there that all believe in some kind of a God? Now, obviously, some nice evidence against a specific religion is, how is it that it's like only people over there, everybody who grows up over there believes in that religion? Okay, but anyway, so someone the other day said to me, you know, there's got to be something because it's a pretty universal human experience. So there's got to be something that we're all sort of seeing or feeling. I said that's possible. Maybe there is something outside of us that we are all interacting with, and that's why we're so ready to believe and why we have these stories. Alternatively, what if we're all members of the same species? Now, hear me out. What if it's not a thing outside that is the same? Because that was fucking stupid of you to say anyway, because it's represented in so many dramatically different ways with like fundamental differences. But what it has in common is power. An agent, some intelligence up there. And down there, out there, whatever. So what if we're all members of the same species? Now, if we're all members of the same species, then we'd probably all be born with like 5 fingers. Probably all be born with like 2 arms, at least mostly. Probably be born with hair up here and very little hair here. Maybe some hair here and here. Probably all be capable of language. Again, mostly. We probably have hearts and brain stems and limbic systems. We'd probably all be able to see basically the same part of the visual spectrum. I mean, of the light spectrum. We'd probably all be able to hear the same range of frequencies. So we'd probably have like pretty similar brains. What if it's coming from inside the house? What if the fact that there are humans all over the world that at some point or another flirt with the idea of a God? What if it's not God that made contact? What if it's God that emerged? That wouldn't at all be shocking. That would make a ton of sense. Of course, every time you make this brain, it comes out with some sense of God. Hmm. Now, could that be considered having a complete explanation for God's origins? Could that be considered counter evidence for the idea of God? I think so. I think so. If just imagine if we were able to like see that people who have certain activity in their brains are more likely to be religious. Out of body experiences, we were able to induce out of body experiences, the soul leaving the body. We were able to induce that by tickling the temporal parietal junction, TPJ, the temporal parietal junction. Huh. Well, that would dash our assumption that out of body experience was like real, because the brain didn't leave the skull when it when the soul felt like it did. And why the fuck is it that when you stimulate here, that's how the soul like leaves or something? What? So we do have evidence, I think, against the idea of God, because we have all the evidence we need for the idea of God. So we know where the idea of God comes from, and it comes from here. And we can see with all the different, that there's always that thing in common, and then of course there are the specific stories that are added. There are things that almost all the stories have in common, but then there are also dramatic differences. So I don't think it was Shiva that presented himself uh, and started Christianity, for instance. There's some pretty fundamental differences there. But there are also some pretty fundamental similarities. So why? How come there are fundamental differences but not fundamental similarities? Because what if that root, that seed, is here,